Restrictions will be further eased later in May and in early June. The Taoiseach Micheál Martin is to formally announce the plan shortly. From the 10th of May, people will be allowed to travel across Ireland. Hairdressers will reopen and team sports training will resume. Up to 50 people will be allowed to attend religious services, including weddings, funerals and masses. Construction will fully return on the 4th of May. On the 17th of May, all shops can reopen. Hotels and guest houses will be open on the 2nd of June, with outdoor hospitality, including restaurants and all pubs, opening on the 7th of June. On his way into the Cabinet meeting, the Minister for Health, Stephen Donnelly, said the plan for June was conditional.
The advice we have from NEFIS and from Dr. Houlihan very, very clearly is that the measures for June, the measures being recommended for June, are contingent upon things remaining stable in May.
The National Public Health Emergency Team has said 3 additional deaths of people with COVID-19 were reported in Ireland today. 474 new cases of the disease also were reported. This morning there were 44 patients with COVID-19 in intensive care. Other news in brief, Gardaí have opened a murder inquiry following the discovery of the body of a man in his 70s at his home in Dublin today. And Northern Ireland's Agriculture Minister Edwin Poots has announced his candidacy for the leadership of the Democratic Unionist Party.
RTE Radio 1 weather with Grant. Why not upgrade to an award-winning Grant Vortex boiler for reliable and efficient home heating? Think heating, think Grant. Visit grant.eu.
Heavy showers this evening, dry and bright spells also. Showers dying away early tonight, followed by mainly dry weather and long clear spells. It'll be cold overnight with lowest temperatures between
Now here is on Taoiseach and government buildings to make the official announcement.
I stood here and explained our strategy and the rationale that underpinned it. I set out a path ahead which I believed was responsible and realistic. I asked you to continue to exercise caution and to trust the science. That evening I promised that the government would continue to review all of the evidence and that before the end of April we hoped to be able to continue the process of responsible reopening and to give more clarity on the path ahead. The good news is that the strategy is working. Because of your hard work and sacrifices, we are in a better place. 1 million of our children are now back safely at school. Our young people are back playing sport. House building has safely restarted all across the country. Vital non-COVID healthcare is being restored. And critically, our national vaccination programme is progressing well. By tonight, more than 1.5 million vaccine doses will have been administered. That means close to 30% of everyone over 16 has received at least one dose of the vaccine. In making decisions on what should happen next, the government has weighed a number of considerations. We've looked at the progress achieved in managing the spread of the disease, the impact of the vaccination programme, and the need to continue responsibly reopening our society and economy. But we've also looked at the risks of moving too quickly. We have to monitor closely the issue of dangerous new variants and learn from the experience of other countries that are now in the grip of deadly new waves of the disease. And in particular, our thoughts and prayers are with the people of India. As a country, we are doing what we can to help them through this terrible time. As I've said repeatedly, we are determined to do everything we can to ensure that when we open the sector of our society, our economy, it stays open. Taking all of these factors into consideration, we now believe it is safe to continue moving forward in 2 phases over the coming months. The next phase will commence on the 10th of May, when a series of really important and very welcome freedoms will be restored. These include the resumption of inter-county travel. Click and collect services and retail by appointment can begin at all non-essential retail outlets, with full reopening on the 17th of May. Galleries, museums and other cultural attractions can reopen. Our libraries can reopen again. Religious services can resume with a limit of 50 people attending. And we can increase the numbers of people able to meet outdoors for social purposes, including in private gardens, to a maximum of either 3 households or a group of 6 people. Small organised outdoor gatherings will also be possible with a maximum attendance of 15 people, while outdoor training for adults can also recommence in pods of a maximum of 15 people. And it is with no small measure of personal relief that I can also confirm that on the 10th of May, hairdressing and other fully vaccinated people, providing there is no more than 3 households present. And those who are fully vaccinated may visit with unvaccinated people from a single household, provided they are not at risk of severe illness. We will, of course, continue to monitor closely the effect that these changes have on the spread of the disease, and subject to the situation remaining stable, we will then proceed with the next phase. And this would mean that from June the 2nd, hotels, B&Bs, guest houses and self-catering accommodation can reopen for guests. And from June the 7th, the following further steps will be possible. Outdoor services in bars and restaurants can recommence with sector-specific safety measures in place. Outdoor sports matches can recommence, but with no spectators at this time. Gyms, swimming pools and leisure centres can reopen for individual training. The number of guests attending wedding receptions can increase to 25, and indoor visits in private homes from one other household can begin again. Taking these steps will see many thousands of people going back to work for the first time in many months. I understand how difficult it has been for businesses and workers, and a huge desire there is for people just to be able to make a living again. I thank you in particular for the sacrifice you have made, and it is your determination to get back to successful trading which convinces me that our society and our economy will recover. As we all prepare for and enjoy the greater freedom of movement I've outlined, thoughts will also inevitably turn to what happens next. Clearly, the overriding priority is the continued successful rollout of the vaccine. As you know, we've had a range of challenges to the vaccine program to manage over the last month. Supply disruptions and updated but necessary advice from the National Immunisation Advisory Council have required change, flexibility and agility. The HSE has shown that flexibility and agility, and we in government will continue to provide every conceivable support and resource to meet the targets we have set. In spite of those changes, 95% of all available vaccine supplies are being administered within 7 days. No effort whatsoever will be spared to make sure that every vaccine we receive into the country is administered as quickly as possible. You have responded extremely positively to the launch of the online portal, and I'm pleased to confirm that over the course of next week, the portal will open for registration to all those aged 50 to 59. The COVID vaccines are transformative. We can see it in countries all across the world, and we can see it here. Already, almost all of our most vulnerable are now protected, and we can already see that the rates of death, serious illness, hospital admissions and infections in people who have been vaccinated have collapsed. All across the country, there are very few families that have not witnessed at first hand the sense of relief and sheer joy of a loved one receiving their vaccine. That will continue and accelerate significantly over the weeks ahead, and as it does, the list of options available to us continues to grow. As I look forward into July and beyond, I want to see our aviation, tourism and all hospitality businesses back doing what they do better than anyone else on earth. I want to see the safe return of our vital artistic and cultural love. And I want to see our students back on campus for the new academic year, enjoying the sort of further and higher education experience that they deserve. We can do all of these things and more, and plans are being developed in each of these sectors. However, to enable all of this, the key factor remains sticking with the strategy. A gradual, responsible Gaile. Beg shansugung in ish, a bed darfach dokasuk, eg braka gach le, eg suil le lehinte gala on taurig at our rowing. As we enter this next stage of a long and difficult journey, we all search for inspiration. We try to find reassurance that there is a solid basis for the hope that is growing within us. For me, I found it in the faces and the laughter of all those people I've met on my visits to vaccination centres. Because as disruptive, as lonely, as frustrating, and as sad as the last year has been, we are getting through it, and a degree of normality is returning. The company of friends and relations is returning. Hope is returning. Each and every one of us has an image in our head of a moment that we're looking forward to enjoying when we get through this. I know I have. Tonight, each and every one of us is closer to enjoying that moment than we have been for a very long time. Let's stick to the strategy, stay safe, and continue to mind each other. Good of Mila Mahagwiv Galer.
Shilly and Taoiseach Micheál Martin invoking a Cork poet, Fionn Sheehan, a Cork Taoiseach invoking a Cork poet. As a Cork man said to me, he announced intercounty travel and gave a date for it there, but as a Cork man said to me, why would any Cork person be happy about intercounty travel? But there has been an awful lot announced there. You spoke with Sarah about it before the 6 o'clock news, and this will work in 2 phases, he says.
Well, Sean O'Riordan had great musical language about the weather. You know, Pascal Tapdir Gulta Talashtir Den Ray. He was to speak about the storm in December. So Micheál Martin is obviously hoping that we won't get December weather come or January weather come May or June. But yeah, like it's the word responsible popped up there most often in terms of the sound cloud. And you know, when you look at this a lot announced there. When you look at what wasn't mentioned, indoor dining or having a pint indoors at any point in the future, not really there. People going back to work, firmly back into their offices and their workplace, not really there either. So it is still a very cautious approach, and even the nuances around who you can and can't meet in what settings, indoor or outdoor, still seems to be fairly confident. But nonetheless, there is that confidence on his part that people are following the advice. The majority of people are following the advice. So when people are told you can only meet a maximum of 6 people from 3 households in their back garden, he's not saying that on the basis that sure, everybody just ignore that and they'll go off and do whatever they want and have a barbecue
in the aviation industry. What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that the population is kind of, grateful for and dependent on the kindness of our public health captors. We're all suffering, I think, from Stockholm syndrome and grateful for small mercies. I think that the insensitivity towards the aviation sector is mind-blowing, to be quite honest. We're not a TAP. We're a highly regulated industry. We can't just get aircraft out of storage, get the crews retrained and so on. I cannot understand why a roadmap for the reopening of aviation and tourism cannot be announced, irrespective of when it's going to start. It has to be announced. We need to plan. So I think it was absolutely appalling that the contempt that this government continues to show towards aviation is so bad. And I'm worried because we are an outlier in aviation. We're the only EU country with a mandatory hotel quarantine. I was disappointed when Taoiseach responded to Michael McNamara's question in the Dáil today about travel, international travel, when Taoiseach said travel between heavily vaccinated countries. My concern now is that we're going to be an outlier again. We will not align with the EU certificate for travel, which is not just vaccine, but it's also as an alternative with equal standing. It is people who have recovered from COVID or people who can produce a negative test. And I'm really concerned.
And I can understand, Matt, why you would be concerned to hear that from the perspective that you're coming from, but can you understand from a public health perspective why a lot of people would feel comfort in hearing the thought to say that when we do allow travel, it would be vaccinated to vaccinated, countries? Because, for example, we're being told today that it's vaccinated people that can meet up indoors, or it's vaccinated people that can meet up with just one household with an unvaccinated person, so it does matter.
It matters, but equally, if the EU are rolling out, a pan-European program for travel and standardising the criteria for travel, I just want to hear our government saying they're going to adhere to that, because heretofore they have not demonstrated that they will follow EU policy. We are doing our own thing here. We want to be outliers, and the hotel quarantine is for EU countries is exactly an incredibly bad example of that.
I know Thomas Byrne has spoken about this before, the junior minister. There has been indications that the government is planning to follow the Green Digital Cert. I suppose the question marks that arise around it is the timing of it at this point, and whether or not we'll be ready to go when other EU countries are ready to go. Sorry, you were saying there?
No, it is, but the other major omission is that Professor Mark Ferguson and his team produced an incredibly pragmatic report on rapid antigen testing to be rolled out across the country, and welcoming and inviting initiatives for this. Absolutely no mention whatsoever from government about antigen testing. There are lots of ways that we can make the return to normality an awful lot safer than just depending on PCR testing. We should be doing self-testing, rapid antigen testing. It should be nationwide, and this will identify infectious cases. It will actually speed up the entire process of getting back to normality. Not a mention of it at all. I just find it highly disappointing. Why commission the report in the first place if we're not going to actually implement the recommendations in that report?
Okay. Just finally then, Pat, I'm not sure if we have a date for the next update on when we're going to be hearing about the next step, the next phase in reopening. As I said, all we know at the moment is July. When does the aviation industry need to know when they're going to be allowed open in order to save the summer, or do you think the summer is over in terms of international travel?
We need, normally we would need months. In this time that we're in, we would probably have to make do with weeks. But certainly, it's not, you can go next week, guys, and off you go. It's not as simple as that. We need the guts of 6 weeks, 8 weeks to plan properly. It is just, it's just not acceptable that there is no signposting and a plan published. Why not? We have a Minister for Transport that we never hear from. We have a Minister for Transport who actually would prefer probably if air travel didn't exist in the first place because of this particular green agenda. So it is just unimaginable that we'll be treated like this. And we are an island nation, a mixed economy, completely dependent on connections and connectivity. And yet we have treated our sector with disdain.
Pat Byrne, CEO of CityJet, thank you very much for joining us with your reaction to today's announcement. We're going to go now to Gina Murphy, proprietor of Hugo's restaurant in Dublin. So some good news, Gina, in that outdoor dining will be allowed, but no date set set on indoor dining as of yet for hospitality, and indeed indoor dining has been put on the government website under the tab of a number of higher risk activities. It has been regarded as a high risk activity.
Well, look, first of all, we're just thrilled that we're going to get open and that we're going to get our businesses open again and try and get what we have left of our staff. You know, we've lost so many of them, but we need to get people back to work. So for that, I'm just grateful that we have an opportunity again. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of inequities in the reopening, you know, with hotels before restaurants, outdoor and indoor. It's all... It's a little bit exasperating. I mean, we need a roadmap. We need to be able to plan. We need to, you know, we can't just open our doors from a standing start. We need weeks of a run-up, which, you know, I appreciate we're getting now. But it's everything that's coming towards us, the double crisp payment, it really doesn't even come close to what we need. I mean, I have nothing left in my kitchen. A double payment doesn't even cover the basics of what we need to get started again.
And just for your own situation, I'm very familiar with Hugo's. It's on a busy road there. I don't know, do you have any outdoor dining space? Or if you do, like how many people could you accommodate in one sitting?
At the moment, I have none. I got permission for one table of 2 last year, but that's taking that aside, we are actually on a campaign to get our street pedestrianised because we have 12 hospitality businesses on this little street, and you know, to do everything protecting these businesses, but also creating an amenity, because last summer was a disaster in Dublin city centre. Our city centre nearly collapsed. We were trading at about 23-24%. Absolutely not sustainable, and we were not viable. We need to create things to bring people back into the city again, and by creating a cultural corridor in this pedestrian area, we would hope that we would create that the vibrancy again to help attract people into an outdoor amenity, because we know that we're not going to have a lot of indoor activities in the next couple of months. So we fully need this pedestrianised, and we need the help of everybody connected to it to help us get this over the line.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us this evening. That's Gina Murphy, proprietor of Hugo's restaurant in Dublin. Do stay with us. We're going to be getting lots more reaction to the Taoiseach's announcement this evening. We'll be speaking to Mary Lou MacDonald, Sinn Féin president, among others, in the next half hour. Right now, though, we'll take a break.
The Ryan Tuberty Show, weekdays from 9 on RTE Radio 1.
Talk to me about Paddy and how is he?
So myself and Paddy, as a family, we've had a very difficult 4 weeks. He has been diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma that has spread throughout his body. But you have to stay strong, positive and focused. And, you know, we did a birthday video for Paddy on Monday, and we had well wishes from everyone from the Taoiseach to Micheál Herthig. If love and support and encouragement could cure Paddy, he'd be Superman at this stage.
The Ryan Tuberty Show on RTE Radio 1. Sponsored by Sky Broadband. Get the power to do more with Sky's best ever Wi-Fi.
If you want a better tomorrow, start heading for it today with Toyota's incredible range of self-charging hybrid electric cars, including the eye-catching CHR and the RAV4. With contributions of up to €3,000, join the thousands of hybrid drivers who have made Toyota Ireland's best-selling car brand in 2021. Contact your dealer or try out our virtual tools at toyota.ie and start your electric journey today. Toyota, built for a better world. Terms and conditions apply. Claim applies until March 2021.
A beautiful bouquet of flowers. It can say more than words ever could. Flowers.ie know every bouquet is special, so every order is arranged with care. They even know it's just right. Order on www.flowers.ie. Rated 5 stars on Trustpilot.
Get the most out of your home with the new Home magazine from the Sunday Times. Our 32-page supplement will answer all your homemaking queries, including advice for buying or selling your house, alongside decorating tips, cooking and gardening. Pick up your copy of Home, launching this weekend only in the